Hey, Michael here from Walk Thru the Bible. There was a survey that was done a few years ago, and it asked the question, why do people struggle to read the Bible? Or what's the number one reason people don't read the Bible? And they surveyed a bunch of people, and the top two answers to that question, why do people not read the Bible, came down to ultimately time, not prioritizing it or feeling like they didn't have enough time to read the Bible. And I get it, right? Our schedules are full, our work and kids' activities and all the things that we do and hobbies, and it can be quite a challenge to find time to read God's Word. You know, a few weeks ago, the new year started, and I suspect a lot of us made commitments to read the Bible in the new year. And we downloaded a Bible reading plan, or we got a plan on our phone and an app to read through the Bible this year. And we're a few weeks into the new year, and maybe you're like me, where you're beginning to feel the pressure of trying to find the time to stick with your commitment to read the Bible. Unfortunately, in the new year, we didn't get any extra time, did we? We get the same amount of time every year, and it seems harder and harder each year to find that time to read God's Word. When we Walk Through the Bible, we're committed to helping you to engage with God's Word. And so we want to take just a few minutes, and I want to share 3 very simple tips that I believe will help us to find time to read the Bible in this year. Tip number 1, to repurpose your time. It may sound simple, but sometimes doing very small things can make a really big difference to just repurpose how we're spending some of our time. My youngest son is 11, and last year he wanted my wife to read him the Bible, which, man, I love as a dad to know that your 11-year-old son wants to have his mom read the Bible to him. But, one of the struggles that we were finding was to find time to do that. After school, there was homework, and there was some playtime, and there was sports activities and meals, and it just felt like by the end of the night, it was time for him to get in bed, and we had run out of time for my wife to read the Bible. And so somehow my wife came up with a really creative, somewhat comical, but really creative solution. When Dylan, he would go to take a shower in the evenings, he would get in the shower, and then he would holler out to my wife, and she would go in and sometimes just even close the lid to the toilet and sit there on top of the toilet lid and would read him the Bible as he's in the shower, shampooing his hair. And at first I thought, this is hilarious. It's so funny to think about. But what a creative solution that she found to help repurpose some time for him to hear from God. He heard a lot of the New Testament last year from the other side of a shower curtain. Now I get it. Maybe bathroom Bible reading isn't your thing, but where could you repurpose some time to find that time to read from God's Word this year? Maybe you're like me. You've got a long commute to come to the office. And rather than listening to the radio or even a podcast or an audiobook, could you put in an audio Bible and listen to God's Word this year? Repurpose your commute. A lot of us spend a lot of time waiting, don't we? We wait for kids to finish their sports activities. We wait at doctor's appointments. We wait for flights. We wait for meetings. We wait a lot. What if we made an intentional decision to repurpose our waiting time to go, here's a few minutes, and I'm going to open my Bible, and I'm going to use that time to hear from God. Time's a great equalizer for all of us. We all get the same amount of time. And finding time to read the Bible this year for you and I may be as simple as repurposing some of that time to find that time to hear from God. Tip number 2, trim the time wasters. I suspect through all of history, there's always been the temptation to waste time. But it seems to me that in our modern era, with all of our modern technologies, wasting time is actually pretty easy. I read a stat a few years ago that said that the average American spends 2 hours a day on social media sites. And at first I thought, how is that even possible? How could you spend 2 hours a day on social media sites? And then I got to thinking about it. It's not uncommon, is it, to pull out your phone and 10 or 15 minutes pass by and all you've done is sort of scroll through some sort of social media site. And you do that 2 or 3 times a day, and all of that time really begins to add up. And add to that time that we spend watching TV or games that we play on our phones. And it's easy for a lot of time to pass by every day that is kind of wasteful or not overly productive, or some time or things that could be trimmed out of our life to find time to read God's Word. Simple changes could help. I mean, maybe something as simple as making an appointment for yourself on your calendar that says at 5 o'clock every day I'm going to read my Bible, or set an alarm so we know that if we're doing something mindless and that alarm goes off, I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to open up God's Word and I'm going to hear from God. Finding time may not be overly complicated. It may just be trimming out some things in our life that are less valuable than finding the time to listen to God's Word. Tip number 3, make a small sacrifice. There's this often quoted adage that says the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. It means that if you stare at something that seems really, really big and impossible, the only way to really conquer it is with one small step after another. For a lot of us, reading the Bible can feel daunting, overwhelming. It's big. There's a lot of pages and a lot of words. And it can feel a little overwhelming to try to read through the Bible. Did you know that for the average reader, if you read the Bible only 15 minutes a day, every day for an entire year, you'll read the entire Bible in a year. That's all it takes. Just 15 minutes for most of us a day means that we would read the entire Bible in a year. And really, that's a small sacrifice, isn't it? I mean, what if we could set our alarm to go off 15 minutes earlier in the morning? We probably really wouldn't miss that much sleep, but that 15 minutes may be all that it takes for you to find the time, not only to just read the Bible that day, but over the course of a year to read the entire Bible this coming year. Every one of us gets 1,440 minutes a day. And if we could just find 15 of those and some small sacrifice to get into God's Word, that's all that it would take for us to read the Bible this year. I get it. Finding time to read the Bible, it's hard. And it's the number one reason why many of us don't read God's Word. I get it. It's a challenge. But the answer may be some small, easy, but rather intentional decisions. To repurpose some time that you're spending doing other things, to trim some things out of our life that are less productive or less useful, and to make some small sacrifices like getting up 15 minutes earlier, staying up 15 minutes later. Small sacrifices to find time to read God's Word. It's an intentional decision to be purposeful with our time. And just 15 minutes means that we could read the entire Bible. And that decision, to be intentional, to be purposeful with our time, to find time to read God's Word, it could be the most important thing that you and I choose to do this year.